Shalom, shalom, Israel. First and foremost, all glory and honor to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh. We do so through His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ. Come back with another lesson, man. Just being faithful to the commandments and just staying faithful to the Most High in this furnace of adversity that we're going through. I want to start off with the book of Maccabees, man. If anybody does not know, that if they're new to the truth, the book of Maccabees is one of the books in the Apocrypha that was removed from the Bible, and we're going to start at chapter 1. It says, verse 11, it says, "In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow," right? Because, we can see that in today's time our people do make covenants with the heathen, they conform to the laws of the king or the kings that we're under, and also in ancient times we always had a lot of our forefathers that, from the time of Moses, when our fathers got delivered out of Egypt, that they always complained and said, hey, let's go back to the Egyptians, man. It's better for us to serve them to die in this wilderness. And our fathers, made that mistake many times, But as we're calling these things to mind among these nations, we're like, hey, the Most High really truly blessed us, in a lot of areas, The Most High was always with us, but we always took for granted His laws, His love, His grace, and His mercy, man. Let's keep going. It says, so this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. So, right, if anybody's not familiar with this is during, Alexander the Greek and his 4 generals, Antiochus, Cassander, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, and, they Hellenized, our forefathers. That's why a lot of people that were Jews conformed to being Greeks. That's where we get that new thing in the New Testament in Galatians, where Paul was like, there's neither Jew nor Greek. Because if you know the history of the Bible, the Jews went into captivity under the Greeks. The prophecy that was in Daniel 8, and the Most High, expounded on it to the prophet Ezra, or Esdras that we call him, in chapter 13, and a lot of our forefathers, they were fearful, and they conformed to the ways of the heathen. So they stopped doing after the laws of our fathers, and they conformed to being Greeks, living as Gentiles, Let's keep going. And made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief, And we don't want to do the same thing how our forefathers made that mistake, because that's why we're in the predicament we are in now. We are in captivity today because our forefathers forsook the Most High. They wanted to live after the ways of the heathen. I'm gonna stay in this same chapter, and I'm gonna jump down to now verse number let's jump down to verse number 66. It says, "At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised," right? Because a lot of our forefathers and foremothers, because there was a lot of women in the Bible that really, stood bold for the Most High, and that's why we say shout out to the sisters, man, that, that be doing their thing, man, And it says, "And they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing." So that's why we tell people all the time, we have forefathers and foremothers that died to keep these commandments. It's so accustomed now to just, okay, it's 2025, I'm going to go into my job on the Sabbath day and work. Back then, our forefathers and foremothers put their life on the line to keep the Sabbath. The day that we're resting right now, thousands of years ago, our forefathers and foremothers died to keep these commandments, man. and not to eat unclean things, man. According to the law, you know, in Leviticus 11, it tells us all the things that we can eat and the things that we can't eat, right? It says, wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, you know, because, you know, it's sad that our people that are still, you know, in the Gentile mindset, that they still, you know, do after the customs of the heathen, eating as the heathen, doing the things that the heathen do, man, that they don't know that they're forsaking the holy covenant of the Most High. It says, and that they might not profane the holy covenant, so then they died. And there was very great wrath upon Israel, man, you know, because when you read the Maccabees, man, you see that, you know, starting off with Mattathias, Judas, and Simon the high priest, man, and the brethren, man, they put their lives on the line. And also many of our forefathers and foremothers that would not conform to the heathen, man. You know, we're not finna break the Lord's Sabbath day. We're not finna, you know, eat any unclean thing, man. You know, we're gonna stay faithful to the Most High. Lord willing, man, they give us strength to endure. I'm gonna get one more. This is 2 Maccabees 6:18. And it says, Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, this man was a teacher of the law, an aged man of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh. This was an elder of Israel. This was an elder of our nation, forced. Think about it, they're forcing him to open his mouth and to eat swine's flesh, you know. But he choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, because that pork, when you read Leviticus 11:7 and down, that's an abomination, man. That's supposed to be abominable in our eyes. Like, I'm not gonna eat no pork, nor am I going to touch it. You know, we know, you know, modern day times, you know, that these jobs, you know, they, you know, most of the things that we either touch or the things that, you know, we're still trying to learn that what has pork in it and what does not have pork in it, you know, if you get what I'm trying to go, you know. You know, they're trying to be very crafty at trying to, you know, make us sin against our God, you know. And then let's keep going. It says, spit it forth and came of his own accord to the torment. And it says, as it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things as are not lawful for love of life to be tasted, right? Because it's not lawful to eat pork. It's not lawful to eat these things because, you know, like we say all the time, our people that still living as Gentiles, you know, we learn that, hey, all things now can be, you know, preyed on, and now they can be eaten. All meats are accepted, you know. But that's not the case, you know. The Most High God written in his law and said that pig, that pork is an abominable thing, man. But you can see that this man right here, Eleazar, when you read the rest of the chapter, this man literally put his life on the line not to eat pork, man. He put his life on the line to keep the laws, statutes, commandments, you know. And in this same time, we need to be doing these same things, man. Enduring, staying faithful to the commandments, man, because we know that, you know, whenever that time of trouble comes, you know, we got to keep these precepts, you know, of our forefathers, man, that they called upon the Most High and they was delivered out of their troubles. They were put in the furnace of adversity, but they remained faithful, man. You know, but Lord willing that you got something from it. All glory and honor to the Most High God, Yahweh. We do so through his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. I'm going to say Shalom.